glasses on so I know where I'm at.
I should need to be muted.
So it's hard to wrap up a lifetime in 15 minutes, but here goes. I really liked how Heather shared. She had a bit of a theme, and it was the names of God and how that kind of affected her life. Mine isn't that. It's basically when God moved in my life and I had a choice whether to carry on the way I was or I had a choice to follow Him on a path that I had no idea where it was going to lead us, me and my family. And so I think each one of us is given a chance to, God is in His grace. We can just kind of carry on the way we want. He kind of invites us to come, but it's up to us to choose to follow Him on that difficult path. And so probably I'm going to start when I first met Jesus. So my family, we didn't go to church. We never talked about God. We lived in the world. And when I was about 11 years old, my mom signed me up to go to Bible camp, Utsa Lake Bible Camp. And I had no idea. I probably went kicking and screaming. I don't want to go to no stupid Bible camp. And, because we made fun of people that were Christians in elementary school. That's something I've repented of since then. But my life as a kid wasn't that happy. There was a lot of violence in my family. I'll just leave it at that. But when I went to Bible camp, they started talking about Jesus and how, He can come into your life and offer you a hope and you have eternal life. And I never heard any of this stuff. Well, by the time I think it was a week or 5 days we were there, I gave my life to Christ. And when He came in, I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was like a hope renewed was within me. And so that kind of stuck with me. I went home, didn't have any support network for being a Christian. All my friends were still the same thing. So it was, after a while, I stopped preaching to them because it was, when you first become a Christian, you're pretty excited about sharing the gospel. Well, that only lasted so long because pretty soon everybody's making fun of you. So moving on into my adult life, I still knew God in my heart, but I wasn't following Him by any means. If you looked at my life, there was no way you would have known I was a Christian. And so much so that I even fooled my wife. So the next major event, so that was one major event where, I had an invitation to follow God and I chose to follow Him. The next one, and I don't even know how I know God put this in my life, was the birth of my first son. And so I was in a relationship. We weren't married. And we were both quite irresponsible. And when I held James for the first time, I had a life-changing event, an epiphany. And I realized that this kid was totally dependent on me taking care of him. And it was just like God reached in and did something to me that changed me from a partier and irresponsible person to somebody that knew I had to take care of this kid. As with anything, any right turn or left turn, we still have to walk it out. And, there were some difficult times. And basically, through a bunch of choices and everything, me and the girl that were together, we stopped seeing each other. And then I met Tana and we got married. And she got pregnant and we had another son. And all along, things attach to you, and it's called baggage. And I was not a very joyful person at that time. And my wife was struggling, Tana was struggling with postpartum, postnatal depression, something like that. something like that anyway. And I'm not going to share her testimony, but it was a difficult time for us. And so during that time, to kind of just before I met Tana, she had met her birth parents, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And they were coming, her birth mom sent some people to come and preach to Tana while she was at work at the video store. She worked at a video store. Remember video stores, all you old timers? Yeah, so she worked there, and they would come and talk to her about Jesus and God. And so she came home and said, I think we need to go to church. I don't know if you said that, but I said to her, I'll take you to any church you want to go as long as it's not the Kingdom Hall. And so we had a mutual friend, or Tana had a friend, and she told us to go to this little church. It was called the Glacier Park Fellowship. And so I went there to help Tana. Well, I walked in that door, and God nailed me hard. I don't remember what the preacher said. I don't remember what happened, but God got a hold of me. And I just remember saying, as for me and my house, we are going to follow the Lord. Well, I was still an angry guy, and I gave no grace to Tana to catch up. I walked in that place one way, and I walked out another, and I said, you're either following me or you're not. And that had its own bunch of baggage with it too, right? So I think that, the Lord kind of gets a hold of you sometimes, and he gets you to make a choice. Well, for me anyway, this is how it works. And then I have to learn how to walk it out. And that took a long time, learning how to, so I had a history with Jesus that Tana had no idea about. And we had to change our life pretty drastically. I was doing some things that weren't that healthy, earning some money that wasn't on the up and up, and had to change our lifestyle completely. We changed all our friends. My family and Tana's family couldn't understand what was going on, because it was like a 180-degree turn. And when you become a Christian, most people think, "Oh, are you too good for me now?" And actually, I realized I was not good enough. Right? That's what you go to church. You don't go to church because you're perfect. You go to church because you need to move into becoming more Christ-like. And so the next big turn that we had is we decided we needed to leave Powell River. And I was working in camp. Tana's family was kind of being, I don't know, I'll let her share her own testimony. We weren't being that gracious to us. We lost all our friends, so we moved up and moved up to Burns Lake. Started going to the Pentecostal church, had a great relationship with Don Street and Marg. That was really cool. Bill, he was there. Probably many of you were there at the Pentecostal church. And that was kind of a time of learning about God, knowing Him better, kind of learning about grace, and God started softening my heart. Well, then something happened probably about 5-6 years after we moved there. I was driving along the highway. We used to live out in Rose Lake, and all of a sudden this whole big pack of wolves was in Hart's Field. And they were right on, like it was early in the morning because I was logging. So it was, 5 o'clock. I was trying to catch the ferry, maybe even earlier. And all these wolves just stood on the edge of the headlights. And all I could see is their their red eyes in the edge of the light. And I heard the voice of the Lord say, "Stay in the light." And whoa. So I shut the radio off, and It was just like somebody was beside me and said that. And I was like, oh, that's, when God speaks and you hear it audibly, you pay attention. And so what happened later on that evening is we had a board meeting or congregational meeting, and it kind of just went crazy. The whole meeting, I'm not going to share any details, but it was basically a couple of us against the whole church. And it was just bizarre. And so in that, I realized that I had really become religious and, following doctrine to the letter with no love. And God really did a work in my heart. And so I had a choice to make. And one of the things, and Greg Kingcott said this to me, he told a story about Jesus and the lady caught in sin, and they were going to stone her. And they really had a right to stone her. They were in the right to stone her because she was caught in adultery. But what did Jesus do? He sat and wrote in the sand. And pretty soon everybody left. But the part that stuck with me was when Greg said they had every right to stone her, but Jesus chose life and love. And that was the point where I could have done that. I felt I was right, and I could prove it. I had scriptures. I was, making a good argument. But then God spoke to me through Greg and said, will you choose love and life? And so that's kind of the pattern through my life, is like God's been making my heart softer. And so the next big event that kind of changed me was the COVID vaccine. And I realize I may be pushing some buttons here because the effects of COVID vaccine and the government mandates, that's still affecting us to this day. But what God did in me was I was always really self-reliant and really independent. And my statement was, nobody is going to tell me what to do. And that applied even sometimes to Jesus, right? Like I always thought I was somewhat faithful, but God really kind of showed me, because I was one of those guys that, a mask, to heck with it, don't need no mask. Nobody's going to tell me that. But then I realized that when I didn't wear a mask, it put fear into somebody else. My actions were hurting other people. And I went, how hard is it to wear a mask? So I put on a mask. Then the other part that really, and when the talk of the vaccine was coming out, I was on no, that's all poison, it's this, it's that. And within probably 3 weeks, and Jay Finstad is responsible for this. No, I'm just kidding, Jay. But he said something. Let the record stand. But he said something, and all he said is like, I don't want to be canceled out of society because I don't want to take a vaccine. And that was the reality that we're in then. And I thought about it, and I thought about it. And then God spoke to myself and my wife, and he gave me this scripture, and he said, it's Mark 16, 15 to 18. He said to them, go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name, they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them. And they will place their hands on the sick people, and they will get well. How can we go into the world when I want to separate myself from the world? Right? God says, be in the world, but don't be of the world. And I didn't want to be canceled out of the world. So we took the vaccine. Boom. That, I don't have to say to anybody here how volatile that time was. But that was, and also had to walk out why I was so independent, why I didn't want to listen to anybody. So God's been working on that. And we went and we kind of left our church for a while, went back, fixed up some fences that were broken. Fortunately, we didn't burn any bridges too bad. We were able to kind of speak back into people's lives and make amends for some of the stuff that had happened. And then we went to Scotland in the fall, and God said, it's time to go somewhere else, do something else. And even in that, we thought, okay, well, we're just going to take some time and kind of see where God leads us. Well, then God spoke to my wife and said, you need to go to the community church. And here we are. So the rest of it is yet to become a testimony. But I think that, I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm such this and this. I follow God, all the time. I don't. God, there's certain points in my life where I chose to follow God, and then it even became more difficult. But if I wouldn't have followed him, I don't know where my life would have been now. I certainly wouldn't be up here, and I wouldn't be a person that cares about people and have my heart softened as much as it is. I was a arrogant SOB, and I used to get in fights all the time. All the time. That was my thing. I'd go out on Friday night and I'd love to fight. But now I love to see people excel in the Lord. And that's what the Lord has done for me. So I think I'm at 15 minutes. So thank you.